bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go! Go! And a good full football Friday, Birds fans. You got Mac and Mac, John McMullen, Jody McDonald here to hang with you for the next 2 hours and talk football. Mostly Eagles football, but we will talk about the NFL draft, which means there's going to be 31 other teams the Eagles will be competing against. You know, the competition didn't end well with the last game of the season for the Eagles against the Bucs, but competition begins again when the NFL draft. Free agency first, but we're going to have an NFL spin on today's show because we've got one of our favorite NFL draft analysts joining us. And yes, the Philadelphia Eagles should be a good one. Thank you very much for streaming. And Johnny Mac, I got to show you this first before we start the show. I found this today.
Oh, Speed Racer. Nice.
It was in the pile of T-shirts, and I haven't worn this in I don't know for how long, maybe even years. And it just jumped. I said, "Oh man, I got to watch this." I don't know about you, when you were a kid, and for you and I, that was both a while ago. Everyone is asked a question at some point, maybe in a class somewhere, just shooting the breeze with your friends. What do you want to be when you grow up? And most kids say a doctor or an NBA player.
Astronaut.
Fireman. Good one. Cop, fireman.
Yeah.
I had one kid in my class. God, I loved him. He wanted to be a hobo. He wanted to...
I hope his dream didn't come true.
I don't know if it did or didn't. I lost touch, but he wanted to ride the rails and eat baked beans over an open fire somewhere. But this
sounds romantic. Yeah, riding the rails. Go ahead. Sorry.
This was numero uno for me. I wanted to be Speed Racer in the worst way, and I clung to it for a good couple of years before I think I to being an NBA player. Yeah, that had a chance. I had just as good a chance of being a speed racer as I did an NBA player. But you have those dreams when you're a kid. But always a speed. So I saw this T-shirt a couple of years ago. Damn, I got to get that. That's a good picture. And I wanted to be Speed Racer. I ended up doing Birds 365 with John McMullen. A little bit of a come down. No, I'm only not because of John. Come down because of yours truly.
Fair, feel free. That's a.
What did you want to be when you were a kid? What was your number? If you can remember back that far, first thing John McMullen asked at age 7 or 8 said, "I want to be."
That's a good question. I don't remember latching on to something. I thought you were going cartoons. I was a Looney Tunes guy, so I was a Bugs Bunny guy. But
Bugs is BFF.
But even today, I still love Looney Tunes. But I've shifted more towards Foghorn Leghorn as my favorite cartoon character ever. I just think it's hilarious. So I don't know, but he didn't really have a job. So I guess, I don't know, Chicken Hawk. I don't know.
There you go. You could have made a hell of a Chicken Hawk. So you got Mac and Mac, the Speed Racer wannabe here talking football with you. Take it with the grain of salt that it's deserved. We do have Ian Cummings joining us coming up in now less than 15
Ian
minutes.
Cummings season. Yes, I love it. I love Ian. He's tremendous.
Good guy, knows his stuff inside and out, does a ton of film work, and his prep for the draft is absolutely anybody, which means it's a busy week for him next week because he'll be adding data points to his research for the NFL draft with all the players showing up in Indianapolis for the combine. We know that the Eagles, we still don't even know when do you even know? Do they have a date on the NFL calendar as to when they announce the compensatory picks for this year's draft?
No, there's no official date. Last year was March 9th, I believe. So, you just go by
sneaking up. We're sneaking up on it, is what you're telling me.
Yeah. It'll be done early March, I would say, right before the league year, somewhere in that range. It should come out at that point, so everything should be locked down.
Right, because as of now, we don't know what compensatory picks the Eagles are getting. There are some outlets that are have done the math homework. There is a mathematical theorem that they use to figure it out. It goes way to hell over my head. I can't understand it. But there are some outlets. I gave you a couple the other day, Tankathon being one of them, that have already locked in and speculated where the Eagle picks are going to be. Well, we know that they're going to have 3 picks in the first 2 rounds. They don't have their own 3rd round pick, but most people expect them to get a compensatory pick at the end of the 3rd round for the Javon Hargrave free agency loss. So the Eagles are picking at 22, 50, 53, and if the speculation is right on the compensatory pick, 97. Just overall, John, that's not bad.
No,
that's a solid position to be in. It's an end of the 3rd round pick because that's where they put the compensatories at the end of the round and still call them that round. You could say it's an early 4th round pick or it's a late 3rd round pick between the 3rd and the 4th round pick. But to have 4 picks in the top 3 rounds is not a bad place for the Eagles to be in this year, right?
No, very good place. The problem is they got to find contributors. That's you got to do something with it, and it's easier said than done. As we saw last year, top 10, you got to get a contributor, and the Eagles were able to get it last year. They had 2 first-round picks, obviously. 30th pick, not so much. So, and then as you go down, it becomes more and more difficult. But if you look at a team like Detroit, who's finding not only people in the 1st round, but you're getting Sam Laporta, Brian Branch. Those are big-time players in the 2nd round. That's what you want, but that's not easy to do. Let's put it that way.
So this is we did. I didn't create this. I don't even know who did. I wish I did. I give him credit for it. But the phrase "Howie season," it is Howie season. This is the general manager's bailiwick. This is what he's supposed to retool the roster with. Free agency does come first, and Howie's got work to do there, but the NFL draft does as well. And in case you're just coming back to the show, you took a break from the end of the season after the Eagles got beat by Tampa. John and I conceptually disagree with what the Eagles can and will and should do with their 1st round draft pick. John thinks there's a very good chance that they will draft an offensive lineman, specifically a tackle, specifically because Lane Johnson's got a little long in the tooth. And I don't disagree with that. But as far as I know, we're not waiting for Lane Johnson to decide whether he's going to play this upcoming season or not. We're all very much assuming that's the case. And when you have 1 1st-round draft pick, I'm not saying they have to pick for need. If the Eagles only had 1 glaring need on the team, and it was off-ball linebacker, and everything else was pretty darn good, if not outstanding, I would not say you have to draft an off-ball linebacker because you need an off-ball linebacker. That's usually how you make mistakes. Here's the deal, folks. Eagles got a couple of holes. Eagles have places they could absolutely use to fill their starting position. Not backup, not grooming, starting position. Cornerback, potentially, linebacker, and safety. I think they're good with any of those spots to pull in someone drafted number 22 and expect them to start. If you're going offensive line, Johnny Mac, I'm going interior because we're all we're not.
Well, here's the part you left out, Jody.
Go ahead.
The reason is not, I'm saying, well, there's two reasons. One, the Eagles tend to default to the offensive or defensive line when things are even in their valuation, is how he explained when he drafted Cam Jurgens. Look, if we have two players even on the board, we're going to take the lineman. That's just how they do business. So that's number one. Number two, there's so many tackles at the top of the draft board. And I was Daniel Jeremiah did his conference call yesterday, his pre-combine conference call, talking about the depth of that particular position. You're going to have a really good player pushed down the board. Whereas at corner, it's not that I don't think they need a corner. They need a corner. But there's four guys you're talking about. And one of them is not going to be in the conversation. And that's the kid from Alabama, Terrion Arnold. He's going to go way before the Eagles pick. Now, Daniel thinks Quinyon Mitchell did enough at the Senior Bowl. And there's a long time to go. There's a lot of hurdles. But he thinks he's out of the conversation. And he's going to go earlier. So then you start talking about really two guys. Yeah, Enos Rackstraw is a Missouri corner, very good player. That's who Daniel had the Eagles pick in his latest, mock draft. And Nate Wiggins, who's a cornerback from Clemson. And that's it. There's people say Cooper DeJean could throw in the mix because he plays corner, but he's more of a corner safety, and they need a real outside corner, not a versatile guy. I prefer the versatile guy. I'd prefer the guy you can move all over. But as we know, that's the Eagles really, with their defensive scheme, don't use those type of players. So, could Vic Fangio evolve away from some of the stuff? Of course, he's done it in the past. He can do it again. But I'm playing the odds here. So, on the other hand, the tackles, I mean, there's Joe Alt is the cleanest prospect for pretty much everyone. Doesn't guarantee he's going to go number, but he's going to go pretty high. His father played in the league. He got the genetics as well. Then he got Fuaga from Oregon State, and Ian will be able to tell you more about these players. The kid from Penn State. You got Latham from Alabama. You got Fontano from Washington. You got Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma. And here's who I'm scared, to be honest. Amarius Mims from Georgia. All these names, all those names I gave you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 names should go before the Eagles pick at 22. That's how good and talented they are. But they're not. All 7 of them are not going to go because there are going to be teams reaching for other positions. Certainly they're going to reach for quarterbacks. We know that. And wide receivers, it's a very deep wide receiver draft as well. There's a lot of good receivers. Those guys are going to get pushed down. The corners are probably going to get pushed up. And if you stay and put at 22, that to me, if you're playing I'm playing the odds. That to me is the most likely scenario. That doesn't mean that's what I do. Doesn't mean that's it. Howie might trade up. Howie might say, I got to have Quinyon Mitchell, but I can't get him at 22. So I got to go up and get him. He may very well do that. But if you're forced to stay at 22, I guarantee you're going to get a player at offensive tackle that is better than the spot. And the Eagles are big on valuation and all that kind of stuff. So that's my thought process.
And I have no general problems with the Eagles stance that you got to have a commitment. You got to have an overall team philosophy, and you need it to be your guideline and your base. But it doesn't mean you have to do so to an above the level of commitment. And I think at times they get to that. And the most recent example of that was Andre Dillard. They thought that the valuation of Andre Dillard was so good they couldn't pass on him. They had to have him. They had to go get him. What'd their valuation prove? He's not a starting tackle in this league. So you can have your valuation. You can have your commitment to the trenches. I think generally it's a very good philosophy. You can't just be a slave to it year in and year out. And when you've got Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson, and I don't know, maybe Lane's got one more year. Maybe he's got 2. Maybe he's got 3. I'm not taking a tackle that I'm going to sit on the bench if both of my 2 tackles stay healthy, and cross your fingers that they do, for the next 3 years. That's what they did. They did it with Andre Dillard. They waited. Jordan Mailata went by him in practice. All of a sudden, the guy gave you absolutely nothing for a first-round draft pick. And I think they're in that type of
you can always pick out outliers, and because every team
is not an outlier, John. It just happened 2 years ago.
No, I'm talking about when you talk about your philosophy and you talk about how you build a roster. I think over the long term, the Eagles have proven their way is better than most. Not all, but better than most. Because you miss on a particular player in the NFL draft, you're not going to scrap that philosophy. They would have done that with Jalen Reagor as well, even more so. They made a mistake with him. Make mistakes all the time. What I'm saying is you can pick players from any team. They've all missed on first-round picks, every single one of them, 32 for 32. So you can't sit there and focus, oh, we drafted Andre Dillard. They made a mistake with Andre Dillard. They did. And their mistake with Andre Dillard is they didn't do the homework on him. They thought he'd be gone top 10, 11, 12, somewhere near that range, and said, well, we have no shot at Andre Dillard. So they didn't do the typical homework. That would be like if Alt fell this year. They're not going to do a lot of homework on Alt because they know he's going to be gone. Maybe they learned something from that, and maybe they will do a little bit more. Different player, as I mentioned, clean prospect, but just using it as an example, you can't say, oh, I took a tackle and Andre Dillard didn't work out, so the best player on my board I'm not going to take because of Andre Dillard. You can't do that. You can't. That's disaster waiting to happen. Brian Billick is the first one who said it to me, so I always give him credit. He's hardly the first to say it, though. But it's a great line, and it's true, and it's 100% true. Need is the worst talent evaluator in sports. When you start drafting for need, because you need, and I always bring up my Adrian Peterson story, where the Vikings got one right. And I said to him, and I asked the question, because at the time, they had Chester Taylor, who had a very good, a bad team. He had a 1,200-yard season. He caught the football. It's a pretty darn good little back, but he was Chester Taylor. And I said, well, you got a back. You got a pretty good back. You got a lot of needs. And I got that quote from the personnel guy, which is one of the great quotes of all time. Fuck Chester Taylor. This guy's different. And they picked him, and they made the right decision. And that's what Brian said to me. And Brian wasn't the one who said that, but he said, need, and we'll talk to Ian about this, need is the worst talent evaluator in sports.
Well, here's the good news, bad news, Eagle fans. The Eagles need a lot. So it won't be one particular need. You're not trying to thread the needle into the one position you have to have. Yeah, that's how you make mistakes. That's how you screw things up. That's not this year's Eagles. And as far as Eagles philosophy, I told you, I agree with the Eagles philosophy. If they say trenches, I'm not going to argue with that. That's pretty damn smart. But you have to be able to fit it to the individual year and the individual situation. You can't just make a blanket statement of, we're going to draft in the trenches come hell or high water. The highest left guy on our board for valuation purposes who plays in the trenches, we're taking him because that's the Eagle way. That's dumb is what that is. And I hope the Eagles don't subscribe to that philosophy this year, specifically at the tackle position. Now, one of the questions I'm going to ask Ian Cummings when we punch you up here in a second, is there a guard worth taking? If they take a guard, if you believe that Kelsey's retiring and they're going to move their starting left guard, right guard back to center.
I would, yeah, it's not going to happen. That's a different valuation.
It is. I understand. But every once in a while, maybe, and we'll find out from Ian if there is a guard that's worthy at 22. Deal break? Yeah, probably not. Ian Cummings from Pro Football Network going to talk NFL draft with it. He's up next here on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services. The first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
With the Combine coming up next week, we turn our attentions to the draft, and when we turn our attention to the draft, we put a call out to our guy Ian Cummings from ProFootballNetwork.com. We like to say around here it's Howie season when the season becomes about player evaluation and roster building. It's Ian Cummings season too, because the Combine coming up next week. You've been putting in hours and hours and hours of film work and going to all-star games and the like. Is the Combine more of a let me cement my opinions? Is it still more of a fact-finding mission? How do you, as a talent evaluator for the draft, look at the Combine?
Yeah, first off, great to be back with you guys here. For the Combine, I think it's more of a cross-checking exercise, right? You know, usually when you watch the tape, you're not very surprised with the results that come on. You know, more athletic guys are going to look more athletic on tape. I think usually there is a positive correlation with that. So really, the Combine for me is cross-checking and, you know, making sure guys test what they're expected to. If they run a little bit faster, now you go back to the tape and it's like, all right, is that a technique issue where he's not gleaning that speed on tape? Is there something you can do to maximize that functional athleticism? Or if he runs a little bit slower, is his game pace faster than his testing pace, right? So it's all about cross-checking and finding true north, right? It's not something where my rankings are going to be too elastic. I'm largely set by the film grade, but I think the Combine testing portion is really good for just cross-checking and kind of settling things. And then for the field positional drills too, just seeing how guys move in space in person, right? Getting a feel for that too. I think it's more for just kind of covering all your bases.
Ian, good to see you. Excited. Ian Cummings season here. One of the best draft guys in the business. Appreciate you. So I wanted to say that right off the bat. But I always ask to start, number one, I want to know deepest positions and from your perspective, and also that shelf when you have the blue chippers and then it drops off a little bit. Where do you have that this year? amongst the top players.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a little bit deeper, the shelf wise. I think last year, blue chip players, there was maybe 4 or 5 for me, and then it dropped off a little bit. This year, I think you're getting close to a dozen blue chip guys. So it's a fun class. And then even after that, too, you have a lot of guys who are kind of in that 8.5 to 8.99 range for me, which is still an impact player, right? So I think it's a lot deeper at the top end, right? You know, there's a little bit of a drop off kind of in the mid to late day 2 range, but there's still a lot of depth there too. And then we see in the day 3 range a little bit of a drop off as well. But I think if you need top end talent this year, a lot of blue chip guys and a lot of impact players too. So I think there's a lot of depth there. Deepest position, there are a few in contention for me. Wide receiver is probably the top one, though. I think wide receiver, the depth all through the class, a lot of variance in the profiles that you have. I would say cornerback is another one too. And I know that's a good
cornerback. Whoa, Johnny Mac just told me cornerback. You got 2 guys who are worth the top 22 picks.
Now I said two are going to be gone. I said, which is Arnold and Quinn Mitchell from Toledo. We're talking the Eagles, 22. Then you're going to have guys like Rakestraw. Is that how you pronounce his name? Rakestraw.
Yep.
Rakestraw. You have the kid from Iowa. And you have Wiggins, who might those guys. If you're sticking at 22, they might be there. They might not be there. But we were talking about tackles. You got that top. There's like 8 tackles that are freaking gonna be right. It's unbelievable how many. So who do you have number 1? Most people, because he's the safest pick, probably is Alt. But all those guys, and even down to Amarius Mims from Georgia, to me, he's the most talented, but he's barely played. He scares me. That's what I'm concerned with, because I think he's started 8 games total in his career. Eagles are known to go with Georgia players recently. He scares me a little bit just because, but he might have the biggest upside. There's so many tackles in that range. You're almost going to have to get value at the position. That's my argument.
Yeah, the tackle class is really strong at the top. I think, it's weird. I don't think upside is a major separator for a lot of these guys, because Joe often gets billed as the higher floor player, but I think he's a very, very good functional athlete with really good flexibility and recovery capacity, and I think that's one of his central traits. So for me, it's not really an upside separator, because all of these guys are so talented. You look at Olu Fashanu, right? The athleticism with him, the explosiveness, the recovery capacity, right? The ability to stay square and play synergetic. Taliese Fuaga from Oregon State. That dude is explosive attacking in space, absolute mauler. JC Latham, who I think is pretty athletic for his size too, a little bit more, blocky, a little bit clunkier than some of these guys, but still very powerful, very explosive, moving vertically off the line. And then Amarius Mims, you mentioned it. I think for Mims, the thing that gives me solace with him is that in such a small sample size, he has shown that he can play the left and the right side. He can switch around a little bit. And I think some of the bedrock building blocks for an offensive tackle, you talk about getting balance off the snap, getting depth out of your kick, right? Acquiring and maintaining leverage and pad level. I think those things are actually pretty strong for such a young player. I think he's very good at acquiring leverage, maintaining balance, staying square, placing his punches. I think there is room to improve his hand usage, right? And kind of combative independence after his initial extensions. But I think from what we've seen, I think the biggest question for me is probably the durability, because he missed some time with the ankle injury. And there were a few games this past year where he had to leave for a little bit. He got banged up, came back in. So I want to see if he can play consistently 17-game season. But I think the talent is absolutely very, very compelling at the top of the board. And then you got guys like Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma as well, which flexibility, leverage acquisition, those are some very strong points for him too. So for the Eagles in particular, if you're thinking about a future-minded right tackle pick, we know it's the kind of pick they like to make, and I think there's some candidates for them.
All right. We know, I see I've got your latest mock draft in front of me, which everybody loves a mock draft. Everybody wants a mock draft. Everybody wants you to affix a guy to a team. All it takes is one major deal that you didn't see coming, and then the dominoes start to fall. That throws your mock draft right out the window. So I'm going to cut you a ton of slack for that. Not even going to begin to question you. But you have your individual rankings, player rankings, not as per position, not tied to a team or not anything else. How many tackles do you have in the top 22?
In the top 22, I know I have Alt, Fashanu, Fuaga, Mims, and Latham. I think
in the top 22.
Those are all in the top 22. Yeah, and then
John's right. You've got 5 tackles in the top 22.
Mm-hmm.
There should be 8 if you just went by top prospects available. I think
there are a
there
lot.
should
You know,
be 8, but there
top
won't be.
22.
That's my whole point.
That's why I asked him, because I wanted his ranking. You got 8 in your top 22, John?
Yeah. It just as overall prospects, not
Right,
they're going in the top 22.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many. It's absurd. But we know people are going to get pushed up the board at other positions, most notably, and people like to talk about quarterbacks. Obviously, the Eagles aren't going to go with quarterback or early in the draft, but one guy that I put in that category is JJ McCarthy, who is an interesting. Obviously, the top 3 guys are going. They might go 1, 2, 3. But JJ McCarthy, I mean, it scares me. On the other hand, I shouldn't blame it on him. It's just the way Michigan played. They were very successful. They won a national championship, but he didn't ask him to do anything. So to me, he's a complete projection almost at the NFL level. Obviously, he's got a lot of talent, but how much does that hurt your evaluation, or how much more difficult does it make your evaluation of a player like JJ McCarthy, who I think you had going 5th, if I recall, at one point? I would be scared to take him at 5th. I think you had him going. You had Kwesi trading up for him. I believe that because he makes a lot of bad decisions. But yeah, I mean, that guy. I don't know. I'm a little frightened. It's not his fault, but I'm a little frightened by the evaluation.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one. And I think for me, there's always a few select principles that elevate, kind of, magnify a QB stock, right? If he's young, if he's talented, if he's a winner, right? You hear those cliches, but they do tend to move guys off the board, right? And you look at JJ McCarthy, he is still just 21 years old. He is very talented. He's got a very loose, elastic arm. He is very athletic, right? So to your point, I completely agree with you. I think the reservations are there because I think I really wanted to see him improve his poise in the pocket, his independent processing, his DB manipulation, right? All of those things in the multitasking with the pocket movement and the field processing and manipulation. And we saw good flashes of it early in the year, but like you said, a lot of people made the same observation in those games down the stretch, those really high profile, consequential games. They didn't ask him to do much. They didn't put a ton on his back. He wasn't often asked to elevate that offense. So now you wonder, we're taking this guy with top 5 capital. Can he elevate the offense when we need him to at the NFL level? That's still a question that we've left unanswered. So I think for NFL teams, it's really going to come down to getting with him one-on-one in the interview room and figuring out, this guy, is he the character fit that we want? Does he have the mental acuity to sustain growth at the NFL level and build off of this physical foundation? Because the foundation is absolutely there, right? So I think for NFL teams, scarcity is such an accelerant too. Supply and demand, simple economics. I mean, it's just, it happens every year. We see guys after that drop off, if you're confident in this player's potential, he is still 21 years old. He does have the physical tools to be an impact starter. If all it takes is the character to kind of solidify that and say, we're willing to invest in this player. And for Minnesota in particular, they have a good offensive line. They have good weapons, right? I think the coaching staff is there to insulate his growth as well. So you ask yourself, do we have the pieces in place to get him to where he can be? And then it becomes an issue of, yes, we're willing to take that. It's a risk, and it's not a risk that I'm 100% sure I would take personally, especially moving up to get him. But he's young, he's talented. Those things are always accelerants.
And when you said he's just 21, my first mental response was, yeah, they're all just 21. What the hell are you talking about?
No, there's a lot of older prospects.
Michael Penix, not 21. Bo Nix, not 21. And those are the guys he's going to be compared against. So you're right to say just 21. All right, I'm going back to your list again. Power ranking, not positional, not need, not a draft mock, just ranking of the players. What's the first guard you got on your list?
The first, okay, well, there's the caveat here. The first player who can play guard is Jackson Powers-Johnson. He's in my top 20, but I would prefer to keep him at center just because he already has very good tape at center. He dominated the Senior Bowl, but his final year too, I mean, he won the Remington Award, and every week, high IQ, high talent, physicality. So he's my top player who can play guard. My top player who I have listed at guard is Graham Barton. Now, he's in my early 30s range. I would prefer to play him at guard, but he can play tackle, center, the whole works. And my top pure guard is Christian Haynes, who's just a little bit behind Barton. Christian Haynes from UConn, another very explosive, tenacious player with the finishing torque. So in this class, you have a lot of varying molds. You have guys who could project there, and you have a few guys who have played there succinctly and will play there. We know that, but I think the moving parts, it will complicate it a little bit. But for the Eagles in particular, I think that's kind of what you're looking at. If JPJ is there and you want to play him at guard, that's a possibility. But for me, I look at those 2 second-round picks that you have in Philadelphia. I would much rather play that value proposition and try and get a guy like Christian Haynes or maybe Cooper Beebe.
Daniel Jeremiah, let's go back to corners because Jody brought that up before, but he had his pre-combine conference call yesterday. He mentioned he had about 14, I think he said 14, 15 corners with at least day 2 grades, which is pretty deep, as you mentioned. But he also said after that top group, it's mainly inside guys, mainly slot guys. Do you see it the same way? And those guys are valuable, and the Eagles could use a slot corner because Avonte Maddox has had significant injury issues over the past couple seasons, but it's not somebody you want to take at the top of the draft, an inside corner. So do you see anybody, how deep do you see the outside corners? I think that's the key.
I do agree. I think the depth drops off a little bit with the outside corner class after that top 15. I still think there are options in the later rounds. I'll throw out a couple. Jarius Monroe from Tulane is one that I like a lot, 6'2", 205. Very explosive, competitive, had a great Shrine Bowl, and he can play safety too. They've been projecting him there.
What round do you think he's going to go in? Because I got him written down here. It's one of the guys I was going to specifically ask you about, and you jumped to him immediately. Thank you for that. What round do you think he goes?
It's tough because he was an NFL Combine snub. I expected him to be invited to the Combine, and that was kind of a surprising development. But I think, he's going to have a pro day. He's going to test. I expect him to test well. My gut feeling would probably be round 6, round 5, maybe round 5, but I think 5 to 7. I think good players fall sometimes, and without the NFL Combine invite, that may be kind of a reflection of where they feel he's placed. But I think he's undervalued. I think he'll be. And we saw last year, like guys that I liked a lot. Corey Trice went to Pittsburgh in round 7. Jalen Jones went to Indianapolis in round 7 and ended up actually starting a few games in his rookie season, playing well. Carrington Valentine went to the Packers in round 7 and I think started half the year and actually played pretty well for a rookie. So I think good players fall. So it's kind of an inexact science, but I think round 5 to 7 is where I'd have him.
Thank you.
Edge rusher, that's another potential spot. The Eagles are going through some things contract-wise with Hassan Reddick, and they don't have enough depth even if Reddick comes back. How deep is that group? And if you start looking, I guess Dallas Turner, Jared Verse would be at the top. It's tough to imagine them dropping to the 22 area. Anybody in that range, Eagles fans should keep an eye on.
Yeah, if you want an edge at 22, I'm not confident Dallas Turner falls that far. I think there's some variance across the consensus where he's ranked. He's my edge 1 personally, but I think the upside is superlative with him. You're not getting a ceiling like that. But Laiatu Latu, if he's there, is one that I would circle. I think him, his pass rush bag, his arsenal of moves is so deep and so complex. And then at 6'5", 260, he's got very good bend capacity too. So he can use that to finish reps while winning hand battles. So I like his pass rush upside a lot. So if he's there at 22, could be an option for them. I think it's definitely pretty well stocked at the top of the board, but I think especially for the Eagles, right? Hassan Reddick, if he leaves, you're probably looking for a speed rusher to replace him, right? So I think in guys who, have some of that speed and bend, maybe a little undersized, but can still run the arc and stress angles against offensive tackles. A few guys within that mold that I look at, and these are kind of day 2, day 3 guys. But Jonah Ellis from Utah was a very productive pass rusher at the collegiate level this past year. I think he had 12 sacks and 16 TFLs, I think. But, 6'2", 250, really good proportional length, really good bag of moves, and he's explosive, bendy, twitchy. Javon Solomon, who played at the Senior Bowl and had some nice reps, 6'1", around 250, but he's got 34-inch arms. So he's well leveraged. He's got great proportional length, can get inside your frame, drive power, but also run the arc. And then Mohamed Kamara is an absolute technician who's kind of within that similar mold too. He's probably a mid to late day 3 guy. But I think for the Eagles, if you're looking for a speed bend rusher, a pass rush specialist, there are some options for you kind of in that value range.
All right. And by the way, Jared Verse, Albany, Great Tane, tough. That's
sir.
why I'm hoping former alma mater. Before he said, "Yeah, I could play on a higher level. Let me go to Florida State rather than little old Albany." But I'll be rooting for the kid on draft night. Safeties. Again, targeting first round and/or second round. Eagles have 2 picks in the second round. Is this a good safety draft? If they don't take one in the first of all, is there one worthy going of 22? And if not, in that second round, is that a position where maybe a pretty good safety, a safety who can step in and play year one, gets pushed down to the board to late in the second round where the Eagles pick?
Yeah, I would say there's one who's worthy of going to round 1 at 22, but it's a caveat because he played corner in college football. Cooper DeJean from Iowa.
Cooper, yeah.
I think he projects very well at the safety. I think you could keep him at corner in a cover 3 scheme where he's asked to play more side saddle, right, playing with his eyes to the ball. But I think it's safety because he's 6'1", 209. He's already got a safety frame, and watching him play in support, he's very physical, very good at combating and deconstructing blocks. And then in coverage, right? I mean, this dude is such a good processor, so instinctive, such a high IQ football player with that route recognition, the closing speed, the ball skills. I think you can play him in a number of different spots, and that's why in a Vic Fangio defense, it would be so fun to watch him play because he's aggressive, he flies to the ball, he's explosive, rangy, and he's got the football IQ and the eyes to play all across the line. So I'm a big fan of him. I think for the Eagles, if you have a need at CB and safety, he can kind of blend the line between that. But if you pass on him in round 1, if you decide to trade back, Tyler Nubin from Minnesota is a guy that's in my top 30. So I think he's a very solid football player. Doesn't quite have the center fielder range, but in 2 high, he can play single high because he is so instinctive. And then he's 6'2", 205, so really good support presence, very good ball skills. My sweet spot for the Eagles is, again, that 50-53 range with those 2 second-round picks. I think there's a good chance that you could get one of Bo Braid or Cameron Kinchens. Bo Braid from Maryland, Cameron Kinchens from Miami. They're different stylistic players. Kinchens is definitely that center fielder, right? 5'11", 208, but he has that range. He has sideline-to-sideline speed. He's very good at undercutting passes. He's got the vision to make plays on the ball, and he's pretty good in support too. I think with him, there are some lapses in coverage sometimes where his vision will get a little bit tied up. Sometimes he doesn't carry guys when he's supposed to. I think Bo Braid is the more consistent football player right now. He's not as rangy in single high, but you can play him in 2 high in the slot. He's so physical coming downhill. He's an incredibly twitched up, energetic player, combats blocks. He attacks offensive linemen and wide receivers in space even, and he's very good at making tackles, right? So Bo Braid, to me, is the better playmaker, the better 2-phase playmaker. But I think Cameron Kinchens, if you're looking for a ball hawk who can actually generate turnovers, that's it. So I think some different flavors there, but those 2 guys are very high. Bo Braid in particular, I think they'll be a phenomenal pick, 50-53.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about Bo Braid recently. That's going to put an asterisk on him, name to keep an eye on. I'm going to give you a specific spot, which you should never do in the draft, but what the heck, we're doing a show. The Eagles need a running back. They might bring DeAndre Swift back. Most likely not. And they'll need some kind of lead back. So they're not going to take one early, and there's no Bijan Robinsons in this draft. I'm even going to eliminate those second-round picks and talk about it's going to be about 97, right, Jody? What was the prediction?
Yeah, that's
97?
what they're projecting for the comp
projecting pick, 97, the comp pick at the end of the 3rd round. Can you find me a contributor right off the bat at 97 with a running back?
Yeah, and I think it depends on what mold you're looking for because there are a few guys who I think can take volume, but maybe don't have the top end mass. But there are a few guys who are absolute bowling balls too, can take volume, maybe not as much versatility in the passing game, but I think you have a contrasting molds for sure. So a few names I'll throw out there, try to cover all the bases here. Bucky Irving, if he's there from Oregon, big fan of his play style. He's an absolute catalyst, explosive, twitchy, high energy player with really good vision in congested areas, very good receiving ability too. Will Shipley from Clemson. This guy is very versatile. He's a guy who can run routes out of the backfield or even go into the slot, but he's around 5'11", 210, very fluid runner, I should say. He's got very good hip flexibility in between the tackles, and that allows him to sift through those narrow lanes. He's got very good vision as well. Injuries were a concern this past year, but if he can stay healthy, I really like Will Shipley. He's a very good, multifaceted player. Marshawn Lloyd from USC, I think, is a very underrated player. I think medicals will be big for him too, but he's around 5'9", 215, so he's got that density for you. But at the same time, he's one of the most agile, shifty runners in this entire class. very explosive in space, very good receiving back as well. So I think if you can get past the medicals, Marshawn Lloyd might have the better mix of volume, size, and density, but also evasiveness within, tight spaces. So I like him a lot too. And then one more that I will throw out there, Audric Estime, if you're looking for a volume guy, right? That dude is 5'11", 227. So he's the bowling ball, but he's got very good forward pressing physicality, very explosive too. You don't often think about the vertical speed with him because he is so big, but when he has a crease, he gets through it, and all of a sudden he's a freight train carrying a lot of momentum and force, and that allows him to finish forward very consistently. So a few guys at RB who I think could provide optimal value. One more name I'll throw out there. I think he might go within that gap between the 97th and the 160th pick. So if you're the Eagles, you might have to move around a little bit to get optimal value. But Dylan Lobby from New Hampshire, I think, is a very, very good sleeper in this class. 5'9.5", 210 pounds. So he's a dense guy too. And he really showed out the Senior Bowl, but he's an elite receiving back. He's another one who can run routes out of the backfield, who can play a slot receiver, essentially, too. His route running is so detailed and nuanced, the footwork, the pacing that he brings, and he's a very good catcher, too. But he's also very explosive. When you watch FCS players, you want their physical traits. If they're a legitimate prospect, you want their physical traits to stand above a little bit, and Dylan Lobby definitely does. He is an accelerator who can create space with his vertical athleticism, but he's also very good at weaving through first and second level lanes. So a lot of talent, I think, in that 97 to 160 range for the Eagles. So if they want to move around a little bit, I think they can work the board and get the running back who's best for them.
All right, I'll go even more specific. A player who I liked coming into the season, unfortunately got hurt, missed as many games as he played, but I still love the talent. I was leaning toward him coming into the year as a potential guy to fill a role for the Eagles. That would be wide receiver 3. See you, Quez. Jalen McMullen of Washington, who unfortunately went down with an injury in September, and I don't think he came back till either late October, early November. He missed 4 or 5 weeks, 4, 5 or 6 weeks. Just love his talent. He brings the same thing Quez does, just pure speed, bringing the top off the defense. Oh, by the way, he catches the football. How much did the injury hurt his draft potential as to where he's going to land, and where do you think it sits by the time we get to April?
I'm glad you asked about him. And if I remember correctly, on a radio spot we had, I think you asked me about him then too. So I think
that proves I'm not lying. I've been asking about him since September, even before he got hurt. And I'm just hoping that the injury actually drops his draft stats a little bit so he makes him more viable for the Eagles.
Yep. My stance is if he's fully healthy at the NFL Combine, he's going to help some people remember about him when he runs, because he's got that vertical speed, right? He's a highly touted recruit. That talent is absolutely there. And I think, another thing with him, he's not just a speed guy. He can catch passes, like you said, but even then, he's one of the best route runners in this class, I think. When you talk about the hinge flexibility, the footwork at stems, the ability to cut sharp angles and leave DBs in a lurch, I think he's a very complete football player with that vertical pressing speed. So he's actually a top 75 prospect for me. He's a top 15 receiver. 75? Yeah, so I would take him in that day 2 range. I like him a lot, and I think that, he's a little slept on, but hopefully that'll change at the NFL Combine as long as he can test. I'm a big fan, and I think particularly for the Eagles, if you're looking for that wide receiver 3, he is that perfect blend of speed, separation ability, and strong hands.
But if you're right, he's top 75. The Eagles aren't taking him. They're not going to use not going to use one of their top 3 picks on a wide receiver 3. I would think about it, but they're not. Would be my speculation.
There is a chance that he gets flagged medically because he had trouble staying healthy. His frame is a little leaner, so maybe he falls a bit. I never want to speak in absolutes because the board, there's always a number of ways it can fall.
Yeah, couple things DJ said yesterday that interested me, Ian. Just philosophy type things. One was at the top of the draft, because I kind of taught. I'm a little different than most. Most have Caleb, Drake May, Jaden Daniels. I would say I'm a Jaden Daniels. I love Jaden Daniels, but I just think he's going to be a superstar. I got kind of spooked by Caleb Williams, which isn't fair, because of that Notre Dame game. It was so bad. I can't get it out of my head. And I'm like, man, if you're that top level of a prospect, how do you have that? I should say it's just an outlier. But Daniel brought up a point that, Patrick Mahomes got knocked down a bit back in the day because he was always chasing points because he had a terrible defense, and you take more chances and you make more mistakes. And same thing happened to Caleb Williams with USC, which had a terrible defense. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's a really nuanced discussion because I do think there needs to be a balance of holding a prospect accountable for things he can improve, but also acknowledging the factors that were working against them. I think sometimes it can go both ways, right? Some people are like, oh, what he's bad at, we can fix it. It's fine, right? You don't want to turn a blind eye to those things, but you do, like you said, want to acknowledge the circumstances that he's working under. And I think for Caleb Williams, there were a lot of games where he was being asked to really put the pedal on the metal and press down hard and get his team back in the mix, right? And sometimes that big play hunting came because of that. Now, the Notre Dame game early on, like his collapse in that game started early on. It was the first half. They were not behind by too much. It was a lot of, digging a hole for himself, throwing 3 interceptions in the first half. And at the very end of the half too, a play where, hey, it's not third down. You can take the next play, and forcing the ball into a tight window, didn't see the underneath defender. So there were times where that habit kind of comes back to a fault and takes over, right? So, I think there's a balance where you need to hold him accountable, but also understand there's a lot of good on the tape, right? So it's not something that makes him a liability in any stretch. It's just something that you want to see him cut down at the NFL level. And looking at how he'll project to an NFL team, odds are the defenses are going to be that bad. You can't speak for, absolutes again, but, the odds are he's going to be working with a little bit better situation supporting on both sides of the ball. So I'm hoping that will improve. But at the same time, those traits that make him so chaotic at times are also what make him special. He does have that ability to create when nothing is there. The play is never over with him because of that change of direction, arm elasticity, vision in close quarters. So, I think for him, it's a balance, understanding that there is room to improve, but also prospects can have bad games. It's okay, right? They can have bad games. It's part of the full picture, and you ultimately want to project what they can be. And I think it all goes into that.
I'm going to ask you a specific question about your work leading up to the draft, starting back in the college football regular season, about Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
And I'll take a little bit of a victory lap here. I had him winning the Heisman before any other national guy I know. He had a couple of games in October that I said, are you seeing what's going on here? I know Caleb Williams supposed to be a lock for the Heisman. Are you watching what this kid is doing down at LSU? So acknowledge for just that 1 year that I thought he could get the Heisman. But how many guys? When was the first mock draft you put out? Was it the day after last year's draft? I won't even count that one. I'll count from September on. When was the first mock draft you put out?
I got to go back and check, man. I know I wrote one a month from September, October, November. So I wrote one a month. So
okay,
yeah.
I believe you. I trust you. Where do you have Jaden Daniels going in your September mock? Do you remember off the top of your head? You want to take a general poke and hope at it?
I do remember there was one mock I did where I had him going to the 49ers in round 2. So for me, it was a corrective process where, coming into the year in the summer, this guy, he had talent, right? And he improved his efficiency last year, but he was still growing as that creator. And I think this year it really came together with him having the confidence to be that big play generator in both phases, right? It really clicked for him this year. I still think as a passer, there are areas where he can improve. Not an NFL level anticipator right now, and that bumps him a little bit down on my board. I also think the arm talent isn't quite at the level of the Caleb Williams or Drake May, but he is a guy who is that hyper elite creator. The athleticism for his size, the speed is incredible. A little bit leaner, and sometimes he'll take some hits that he probably shouldn't take, right? He's a very good competitor, and sometimes they can play against him. But again, the speed, the agility, the creative potential is near unmatched with him. And then he is a good quick game thrower who is accurate, right? So, I think there's a lot to like. And I think for me, it was a little bit of an not an acclimation process, but a correction process where you see he's playing well. All right, let's go back to the grade book, put in some new numbers, and where does he file in now? And then I think it was around October that I was like, October, November, where you're starting to kind of be honest with yourself, like, hey, this guy's a first-round passer, right? It's just where does he rank? So there's always a little bit of a process because you are covering so many bases and watching so many guys mid-season. But you eventually you're honest with yourself, and you have to address this on the tape and see what you see.
Knowing you, I knew you'd take it that way. You'd take it as, I had to make a change. I had to revive it. I guarantee you.
Everybody did.
I guarantee you there were other guys that had him in the 6th round. If you had him in the 2nd round in September, there were guys who had him in 6th round who now have him going number 2 overall. As great a season as he has, he won the damn Heisman. What more can you do on the collegiate level? can you go from the 6th round to the 2nd pick in the draft in 1 year's time? Can you actually do that? Can you accomplish that? I guess anything's possible, but that seems a little bบdrastic for me.
Yeah, I mean, anything's possible, right? Yeah, as an NFL draft analyst, I've learned never think you can expect what's going to happen. Never think what's going to happen. It's just, it'll always hit you with surprises, the NFL draft cycle and the NFL cycle, like how guys progress too. So you learn to stay open-minded and flexible and just kind of roll with the punches and know that there's a lot you don't know. And there's a lot of circumstances in flux too. Like if Jaden Daniels never came to LSU, there's a good chance that he doesn't rise this high because LSU afforded him the proper supporting cast and the coaching, right? So, there are so many different variables that kind of accentuate that change year over year. And as an NFL draft analyst, I think the most important thing is to understand that and be able to change with that, right? And move with that flow. So Jaden Daniels is a perfect example. And, guys like Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr., you can go down the line with the transfer quarterbacks who capitalized on that change of scenery. I think it's a common theme and, it's something that's a part of it at this point. But as an NFL draft analyst, you learn to accept that and be fluid.
That leans right into my other philosophical question. At IC_draft, make sure you follow Ian on X. Does a tremendous job for the Pro Football Network. You see, he knows his stuff. Transfer portal, man. Everybody plays in different spots. How does it make it more difficult? You kind of alluded to it there. It's just part of the process. You got to get used to it. But I mean, you mentioned Daniels, Williams, all the quarterbacks basically,
except for Drake May.
Except
He's
for
the only
Drake
one
May.
who stayed put.
Yeah, except for Drake May. I mean, how much does that make it more difficult for you when you got guys bouncing around all over the place? Not just quarterbacks either, every single position.
I think the toughest part is recalibrating at the start of the cycle and going back because I have a 2025 watch list that has a lot of guys on it right now. And after the 2024 NFL draft, I'm going to have to go back and make sure that I've got all the right schools listed because there was so much change, right? So I think that's the toughest part of it for me. I think it's difficult because every transfer player makes that decision for different reasons. And sometimes it's not fully the right reason. Sometimes I think a lot of guys do need to change the scenery, but you don't want to move just because things aren't perfect right now. All right, I want to move. I want to be a starter, right? Sometimes you're not ready to do that. And there are some guys who do make it based on the proper merits. I want to be a starter, but where's a place where I can feel properly coached up, right? For my NFL development. So there's a lot of factors that go into all of those decisions. And for me, it's really just tracking where guys are going and then seeing what becomes of that, right, on the tape in the following year. It's a very complicated process. So for me, what I do is I just try and, understand what I can understand, control what I can control, and, list guys where they are and see what happens with those changes. But, understanding the transfer portal, again, it's a very inexact thing. It's a little chaotic right now, with a lot of the coaches. You saw Jeff Hafley going to Green Bay from Boston College because
a lot of guys bailing. A lot of guys.
I want to focus on football. Yeah. So it's a chaotic time right now. So as an NFL draft analyst, again, I know I sound like a broken record, but just understanding that, sitting back, watching, and staying open about it.
All right. I'm going to really tick off all Eagle fans on this stream here right now. I'm going to suggest that Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is taken with the 52nd pick in this draft. The Eagles draft 50th and 53rd. I am really threading the needle here that he's going to go in between the two picks in the second round the Eagles have. Number one, will he drop all the way to 50? Eagles' first chance to take him. If not, does he go shortly thereafter? If the Eagles get him with their second of their two picks, then everybody will really be happy. How do you have him rated? Where is he on your power rankings of all players, knowing full well the NFL and their feeling about off-ball linebackers and the like? Where does Jeremiah Trotter Jr. fall for you?
Yeah, so he's falling a little bit for me. I still have a top 75 grade on him. He's one of my top linebackers. It's pretty clustered together right now for me, and that's one position that I'm still kind of settling because there are a lot of questions. Peyton Wilson from NC State, I think, has the highest film grade for me, but medically, there's a lot of questions there, right? So that might have an impact. Cedric Gray from North Carolina, I like. Trevin Wallace from Kentucky, another guy I like a lot. Jeremiah Trotter is kind of in that group. I had a very high grade on him coming out 2022. And I do think in 2023, you saw some of the traits that make him such a good prospect, like I think within the tackles, that the instincts to play blocks, right, and combat through blocks and that physicality, but then also having the explosiveness to drive on short passes and make plays, right? So I think all of those things are there. He was dealing with a hamstring injury a lot this year, and I think it did affect his mobility at times, his change of direction. So I want to see if he's fully healthy at the NFL Combine. But an instinctive 3-down defender with the coverage IQ, with the block construction, I think all of those things are there for him. So he's around that range for me. I think he would be worth one of those second-round picks. If he's not there, though, I think you got guys like Trevin Wallace. You got guys like Peyton Wilson who could be there, right? Cedric Gray, I like him a lot. Junior Colson, I know, has been rising a lot. And I think when he tests, people are going to get on him even more because 6'3", 245 or so, elite size speed athlete again. So there are options for you. But if you're looking for a guy who can deconstruct blocks, play physical, has enough coverage IQ to work in space, I think the biggest question for him is the mobility issues that we saw in 2023. How much of it was injury related and how much of it was just he's a little bit muscle bound, he's a little bit stocky, or he doesn't quite have the NFL level, second level mobility. So I think we'll see some answers there at the NFL Combine, but he is within that range for me.
I see. Have a good time taking in all the Combine stuff. This is your time of year, so we're going to be calling pretty often, as a matter of fact. We appreciate you not only joining us, but getting up early to do so today. Thank you very much. Have a good time next week.
Yes, sir, Jody. Thank you for having me.
Our
Thanks,
pleasure.
Ian.
That is Ian Cummings from NFL Draft Network, NFLDraftNetwork.com. McMullen and McDonald, the Mac and Mac guys. We'll take a quick time out. We'll break down some of the stuff that Ian said. We got our guy Paul Domowitz scheduled to join us. I think Damo went in for surgery or something like that. Torn
surgery.
Achilles. I don't know. I think
And he's coming right out.
I think he tore his Achilles raking leaves or something. I
Yeah,
don't know.
man.
He just said he had a doctor's appointment. He's going to try and be back by 9:20 to jump it up with us here on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing, the second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs, and then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
You got Mac and Mac. Jordan McDonald, John McMullen here with you on Birds 365. I could have Ian Cummings on once a week as far as I'm concerned. He's that good at breaking stuff down and knowing where players should be situated and ratings and their strengths and weaknesses. Just always enjoy talking draft with Ian when he comes on. And like I said, we got Damo scheduled to join us coming up in 15 minutes. He's coming back from an appointment, but we'll probably get him up at some point during the day. Jenny, let's get back to home a little bit more with the Philadelphia Eagles. People wondering why the Eagles had this massive drop-off after starting 10-1, and how the hell did the bottom fall out as badly as it did, and everyone wants answers and or to point fingers at what transpired and why it went bad, why it went downhill. One guy found out today that it's not his fault, and that would be Alberto.
Yes.
You and I both with the last two Eagle signings, guys from teams that played into the Super Bowl, didn't stay on their roster, became free agents because they weren't signed to future deals by the Chiefs and the 49ers. It made sense to us that this is where the Eagles do good work outside the margins, finding the guys who slip through the cracks and the like. It's one of Howie's specialties. And we'll see if either one of the two players they've signed can actually contribute to the team. Then there's the Albertos of the world. And I liked Alberto coming out of Missouri way back when he was in the draft, and he had a couple of okay years with the Broncos, and he had one massive preseason game. I think he had a 100-yard game in preseason.
Yeah, the big preseason game. Yeah.
It kind of grabbed the Eagle attention. He was there all year. And John, I got to give you a high five on this one. You tied him for a number of catches for the Philadelphia Eagles this year. You and he finished.
He got one more target than I did.
Yeah, he beat you with targets, but catches for the 2023 Philadelphia Eagles, John McMullen, Alberto tied at 0. What? Because they gave some up to get him? Is that the line of logic here, that they had to swap a 6 for a 7th, that Howie feels pot committed on Alberto? What did he do this year that merits him coming back to this team and the need to get it done before free agency actually starts?
I think it's one of those things. I don't think it's a big deal. Number one, I think, they'll be able to get my assumption is, remember, they acquired him at the initial cut down to 53. So you're talking whatever it was, August 29th, 30th, whatever it was last year. So he wasn't with the team in the spring and training camp. He's still with Denver. So maybe they want to get a bigger look at him, an extended look, let him have a real spring and a real summer and see if he can contribute. You mentioned it back in the draft. I mean, the guys, and you liked him coming out of Missouri. A lot of people did, because the guy's 6'5", 260, and he runs a 4.49. The guy's a physical freak. So that's always been the, hey, if he can put it together, he could really turn into something. And it never, he had a couple, as you mentioned, flashes with Denver, caught 54 balls over 3 seasons. So, he contributed to them a little bit more, certainly, than he did here. I think it's a situation where they want to see him, and they're not in love with Grant Calcaterra, obviously. And, maybe they sign somebody in free agency, maybe they draft somebody and they just cut him. But, let him have the spring and let him have the summer. And if something clicks, you might have an upgrade at that backup tight end as a receiver. And that's what they've been looking for. So I don't think it hurts, but I'm a little bit surprised. I didn't think, everybody who does this, I saw a bunch of guys, everybody does their stay and go list after the season. Everybody had Albert going, everybody, because they didn't use him. And they had, even when Dallas Goedert got hurt, he had, I got to look it up, 57 snaps on the season. That's it. And 32 of them came in one game. And that's it. They barely looked at him. They barely used him. So, he came in late. Maybe they want to look at. Maybe Kellen Moore wants to look at him, and maybe Kellen Moore saw him from afar and said, "Yeah, I use tight ends. That dude can run. Let's see what he has." It's by no estimation that similar to those future signings. If they don't work, it's no big deal. You just, I'm sure he got the league minimum. You just cut him and move on.
Here's the only place where it can become a bigger deal, not become guaranteed. It's going to be a bigger deal. I'm not going out on that limb. Yeah, I still think there's a role for Calcaterra under the right offense. And last year's Eagles wasn't that offense, and they drafted him with the Eagle offense in place. So they either thought he was going to fit to it or it was going to fit to him. And I don't think it's been a perfect fit since. But I think the guy can both run routes and catch the football, which I'm sorry that I can find. I'll put it on my offensive coordinator to find a way to use a guy with those two talents. And I saw none of that out of Albert O. And it's been a couple of years. I know he put up some numbers in Denver, but I didn't get to see it with my own eyes. So I just am looking at numbers on a piece of paper. I saw it with Calcaterra. And this to me signifies Grant Calcaterra's got no chance to make this team. They're going to upgrade a tight end somehow, either via the draft or a free agent signing who's not making the veteran minimum like we're assuming Albert O is, which means there's not going to be a roster spot. And I like Calcaterra better than I do Alberto for this Eagle offense going into next year.
Well, they're not going to, I mean, he's still under his rookie deal. He'll have a chance to compete in the spring and summer, as I was talking about. So if he outplays him, but yeah, I don't think they think highly of Grant Calcaterra. I will say that. I think that's pretty evident as well. But I didn't think they thought highly of Alberto, and he's back. I got to look up. Grant had, let's see, Grant Calcaterra. Got to look at how many snaps he had. 120.
More than Albert, yeah.
More than Albert. But he played consistently. So that's even more concerning to me. Like Albert only played in 4 games with those snaps. Calcaterra played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 games. And the most snaps he got in one game was 18. So even
specials.
Yeah, I'm not talking about. Yeah, he does. I'm not talking about special team snaps. I'm talking about offensive snaps.
The reason I brought that up was you ran out how many games he played in as compared to how many games Albert played. Albert didn't play on special.
No.
So that's why Calcaterra would play in more games because he actually contributes on specials.
Yeah. He was one of the blockers for the kick returners. I know that. So he was one of the upbacks. They really don't have old school upbacks anymore because what they've done with the kickoff returns. But nonetheless, he was one of those guys. And, but as far as the offense goes, even they gave Albert the one extended look when Dallas Goedert was hurt. They didn't give that to Grant. So that's not a good sign, I would say. But they need to improve. I think Jack Stoll's fine as the backup sort of blocking tight end, but they need to improve behind Dallas Goedert because let's be honest, Dallas Goedert, the way he plays, we talk about it with Avonte Maddox, same thing with Dallas Goedert. He wins Kyle Brandt's Angry Run Award twice. Well, he also hurt himself doing it, and that's 2 consecutive years. Now, the year prior, he got pulled down by his face mask. That's bad luck, but he gets hurt because he plays kind of violently. So, if you need to replace him for 3-4 games, which has been the case over the past 2 seasons, you'd like to have somebody who can give you a little bit more. And I think the Eagles are searching for that.
All right. One other thing I want to run by you before we get our buddy Paul Domwich up here. Your friend and mine, Derek Klassen, I asked you about Derek a couple of weeks ago. Remember, we brought him up from the 33rd. He is
he was the
33rd team.
Quarterback.
Yes, the quarterback guru of the 33rd team, Derek Glasson, who had
I forgot. I had already forgot. I didn't know where you were going.
I got a piece of paper right here that I will keep next to me all season long where Anthony Richardson is rated ahead of Jalen Hurts from number 16 to number 17.
That really is absurd.
And Brock Purdy is number 18, coming off a Super Bowl appearance where John McMullen said if he plays clean, they can win the game. He played clean, and they still didn't win the damn game. But he's got Purdy behind Hurts at number 18. They did have a chance, and Purdy played well enough for them to win that game. Derek Glasson at it again. He's ranked all 32 play callers in the National Football League. From 1 through 32, I'm
already pissed off by that.
Okay. We're gonna bookend this thing. Who do you think is number 1?
Kyle, I would think.
Kyle Shanahan is his number 1. Who do you think is number 32?
Well, I assume the new guys don't count.
Oh no, he's got some new guys in there.
Oh, well then I'd have to.
And this is not a new guy.
Not a new guy.
Was new last year, so he's in his second year of play calling responsibilities.
Oh, it's not Brian Johnson who got fired.
No.
I don't know.
That would be the play caller for the New York Jets. Nathaniel Hackett is number 32.
That's that's got more to do with Denver, I imagine. But
whatever it has to do with, he is number 32. Jets, Jets, 32nd and last in the National Football League.
But Aaron Rodgers should be the 32nd, but he didn't get to play.
He's going to be the whisperer in the ear for Nathaniel Hackett, and might be able to get him out of 32nd place. Truthfully, I don't have a problem with either two of those rankings. The Eagles have a new play caller, John McMullen. Kellen Moore will be calling plays for the Philadelphia Eagles this year. Where do you think he's got Mr. Moore ranked?
Coming off last year, which wasn't great, I'm going to say 14th.
You need to go a little bit lower than that.
Lower?
Lower, as in backwards.
Wow. That bad, huh?
14 would be the top half. He would be in the bottom half. 17th is also a little bit high. Man. He's got Kellen Moore ranked as the 19th best play caller coming into the season.
Yeah, I don't.
The only thing that makes me feel good about this is Cliff Kingsbury, 26th, who the Eagles also wanted to hire, and I wanted no part of. I hope you're right about that one, Derek. That Cliff Kingsbury is this fascination and fantasy where he doesn't actually
judge play callers. I mean, come on.
Results. You judge the results, and that's fine.
Which is fine, but then judge offensive coordinators. Don't judge. You're putting the term play calling.
Like Mike McCarthy is the play caller. He's not the offensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys. He's the head coach / play caller. And oh, by the way, he's rated ahead of Kellen Moore.
All right. Well, then make up a term. Offensive
play callers. It is what it is. I comprehend what he was. Those that he was trying to rank. Those who call plays on Sundays. I don't have a problem with his grouping or definition of what he's trying to use. I just think that Kellen Moore hasn't done enough to be.
Well, I guess
top half of the league.
As long as he's not judging. All right, if you just want to use the title and you're judging the best overall, coordinator or guy who runs an offense, yeah, that's fine. But if you're actually judging, if you claim you're actually judging play calling, I have a problem with it. So it kind of depends again.
Why would you have a problem with it?
Because you don't know the play call. It's impossible to know. Again, You can have the best play call, and I've had this discussion with Doug Peterson, or you can have the worst play call, and somebody saves your ass, and you look like $1,000,000, and you can have the best play call, and a left guard misses a block, and you look like a you-know-what. You can't judge. You're judging play results.
Yes, that's exactly what you're doing. You're judging play results.
That's all I'm saying. So,
and you don't. I don't have a problem with that. Apparently, you do. I got no problem judging the results.
Well, that's fine, but judge the results. Don't say, "Oh, blah 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 is a bad play caller." Judge blah 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 had bad results. Is what you're saying?
Yes.
And, which is fine. That I'm fine.
Yeah, I got no problem with that. And I just think he's got Kellen Moore a little low. He's McMullen on McDonald. He is back. He's back from the doctor. He lives. Glad to see it. No, I wasn't sure we were going to have him, but we got him. And he's got a cool shirt on. Paul Domwich, 3013, JAKIBsports.com. Up next here on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing, the second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs, and then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Appreciate you streaming in here to Birds 365. I went speed racer today with my T-shirt. Tommy Bahama is the way our buddy Paul Domwich went. Now, did you wear that shirt to the doctor's office and then change when you got, or did you got rolled out of bed and just automatic Tommy Bahama on Friday? How'd your wardrobing go today, Dama?
Every day is a day in Hawaii here in South Jersey. So.
Yes.
God damn it! You live a better life than I do. I got to reevaluate my life.
Yeah. I'm not wearing the Hawaiian shirt when I'm taking the dog out and it's 20 degrees, Domo. I can't.
You got a coat on. That's not a problem. I wear a short sleeve shirt under my
I can't do it. My dog doesn't wait for me, man. I got to go out. I'm freezing. I can't.
Got to have that coat handy. Dom, I'm glad you were able to jump in here in hour number 2. The combine coming up on, I guess some teams will start getting there on Sunday. It gets underway on Monday. You got a good combine story for us? Anything you didn't expect or ran into somebody or somebody made a fool out of themselves in the years that you had it out in the however many there
were? A lot
of
alcohol stories.
Yeah. Give us your best combo story, whether you were or weren't wearing a Tommy Bahama shirt.
Man, I started going to them. I was the only guy there at the first one in Indianapolis. So early on, they had a guy in charge of the combine who just did not want the media there. I mean, it's hard to believe considering now that it's turned into a media fest where, but back then we were the enemy and they were trying to keep secrets and they would take the chair. The guy, we used to hang out in the lobby of the Holiday Inn Union Station where the players stayed and got tested, which is right next to what is now Lucas Field, but before that, the Hoosier Dome. And before we would get there, they would go into the lobby and the guy would take out every chair so that we could be, as uncomfortable as possible and not want, with no place to sit down. And, so back then, it was very difficult to get, you had to count on agents to get interviews. I remember, and this again is a way back when story, back when those leather trench coats used to be in fashion with agents and other people who thought they were really cool. And I remember it almost got to a fist fight between two agents, and believe it or not, one of them was Drew Rosenhaus.
Oh, shocker.
No, so it isn't so, Damo.
Accusing him of stealing his client, which again is so hard to believe with Drew. But so back in those days, it was a lot more fun and unpredictable.
Yeah, the Wild Wild West. Those were the days.
Done. Now it's a great place to be as far as access to players and getting interviews that you need. Things like that. So
yeah, and I hope they keep it in Indy, but I still think and they keep extending it, so there is some groundswell for it, but I think it's going to be in LA. I think it's going to be I think ultimately they're going to move it out there, and it's going to be but that's the way everything's going. If you go to the Senior Bowl, who were we talking to, Jody? Who was down there? Tommy Lawler was down there. The Senior Bowl, I mean, it used to be everybody mingling. Now they keep you on both sides and you can't have as much access. I think the same thing has already happened to the combine, but it's going to get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
I hope it's not the case, but I think that's the way it's going. One way it is going is that 12 coaches are not talking at the combine. 6 GMs are not talking. So that means 6 teams don't have their head coach or GM there. In the days post-COVID, everything's video, Zoom, blah, blah, blah. Sean McVay, Lesney. We can get more work done at home.
Yeah.
You think you like that thought process? You don't like that thought process? I give the Eagles credit. I'm surprised. You have an avenue. Howie's going to talk. Nick's going to talk. This has not been the easiest of off seasons with all the rumors and all that stuff swirling. I give him credit for still doing it because a lot of teams are bailing on that.
Yeah, I mean, you can get most things from film, but the in-person contact with a guy that you may be about to hand over your future to is invaluable. I mean, that's why I think I like to see coaches go to a lot of these pro days and get to they get a better feel for a guy than they're going to get on film. I mean, you're going to get the measurements and the 40 time and the vertical jump and all that on film. I mean, they did it during COVID, for God's sakes, when they didn't combine in 2021, I don't think. But yeah, I mean, I don't like it. If I'm running an organization, I want my coach there. I want him to get a sense of these guys, just the human contact as opposed to, the film.
Damo, if you were a member of the Philadelphia Eagles staff, scout, contributor, assistant general manager, yeah, Howie's going to keep his job. We're not giving you Howie's job, but you were someone who Howie leaned on. You gave your impression, your reports, and the like. For those who skip events at the combine, some guys don't run, some guys don't lift, some guys will only come in and take the medicals and then meet with the team, but won't work out a little bit. Do you how would you deal with that if you're just asked your general impression? Are you okay with it? Hey, it's understandable. The downside outweighs the upside. Wouldn't hold it against a player, or something you would hold against a player. Come on, you're a football player. You're not supposed to just sit here and talk to us. We actually want to see you do something athletic if we're going to make you a first-round pick. How would you handle someone who at the combine says, yeah, I'll do this and that, but I'm not doing the rest of it?
I mean, we've been hearing for years, guys, like back when Bill Polian was still an executive, oh, these guys are going to suffer, they're going to go down and, it's going to hurt their grade. And then, we'd get to the draft and these guys would get drafted exactly where they were expected to be drafted. As long as you're getting a chance to see them do something, if they're healthy and they do it at either their pro day, if they don't do it at the combine, I'm okay with that. I mean, what is one of the most important parts of the combine is the interviews. I mean, that's when you kind of get a sense of the guy. That's why I think a coach needs to be there for those, the in-person interviews, the 15 minutes with a guy, not just watch him, go up on the whiteboard and break down a play that you're asking him to break down, but just to get a sense of his personality, those kind of things. In an ideal situation, sure, you'd like to see them run in both places, in his pro day and his combine, but it just doesn't happen. Just like first rounders don't go to the Senior Bowl anymore. So you deal with it, you adjust. That's just the way life is now in the NFL.
Well, yeah, and plus Nick's got to drag the little Eagles basketball hoop to test the competitiveness, and yeah. And what was he playing the first year? What game was he playing? I forget already. What was it?
For a while,
I'm trying to play.
Rock, scissors.
Yeah, rock, scissors, paper. Yeah, Rochambeau, as I like to call it. Yeah. So you got to test their competitiveness with the rock, paper, scissors. That's a very important part of the process. Yeah. It has changed. Closer to home. This is the one everybody does their stay or go list, Damo, after the season.
Yeah.
I think every single one of us had Albert Okwuegbunam going. All of a sudden they sign him. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, they probably want to look at him. He came in late. You give him a spring and summer. Maybe he catches on. Maybe he's better than Grant Calcaterra. If not, you can release him. Are you a little surprised, or you see how he gave up something for him, so they want to keep him around at least a little bit longer, give him every opportunity?
Whenever Howie gives up something for somebody, he's going to give him every opportunity. I also don't think right now they know what they got in Grant Calcaterra, because I expected more from him late in the season. He didn't, he got some snaps. He and Jalen didn't seem to be meshing too much. Jalen never seemed to look for him. I think right now their situation at tight end beyond Dallas Goedert is so wide open that they want everybody back before they make any decisions.
All right, Damo, this goes back to your day, and I actually surprised John when I said this the other day. Back in the 90s, I thought Craig Carton was a pretty good Eagle beat reporter. He was the Eagle beat reporter for WIP. And I used to have Craig come on my midday show every once in a while. And I thought he was actually pretty good at it. I thought that he had guys that talked to him, and every once in a while he'd get something that he'd get it first, or he'd get something that nobody else had. This week, I think he's just throwing stuff at the wall to see if it'll stick. He's not on the beat anymore, but somehow he's got inside information that nobody else has. So I'm not confirming what Craig did. I'm just saying there was a time when Craig wasn't a bad Eagle beat reporter, and he did a good job. You were there when Craig was on the beat. Shoot, WIP paid for him to travel with the team. He went to road games. He didn't just do it at home games. He went to road games too. You ever have any interaction with Craig?
No.
Okay. All right. Just wondering.
I think that tells a tale right there. No, I mean, and I put this on X yesterday, and I said it's boring. I said I'm sorry, it's boring, but I didn't notice any severe kind of dysfunction in a locker room, and I was there from start to finish. I just didn't see it.
Yeah.
I saw a bunch of players not playing up to their standard late in the season. I saw a whole lot of that. Is it just people need an explanation? They need an explanation. How do you go 10-1? How do you fall off a cliff? It's got to be something nefarious other than Occam's razor. Simplest explanation is usually the right explanation. Like Damo, you tore your Achilles. Jody said, you got a torn Achilles. I'm joking. He was joking. He went, but the simplest explanation is usually the right one. Bunch of guys didn't play well. There we go. Let's turn the page. Let's get a bunch of players that play well together. Maybe it's the coaching staff, but this grandiose, I didn't see it. I'm sorry.
No.
But let me ask you, and Damo, I want your take too, but this is kind of for John. So who said the most miserable 10-1 locker room they'd ever been?
Well, we all said that.
Well, that's what I mean. That
Jeff
count?
Jeff McMullen said it. I think he used the term, but we all said
right. And you said it, and Kratz said, and everybody else who was in the locker room said it.
That to me,
there's got to be some reason that they're the most miserable 10-1 team in the history of football.
Yeah, the expectations, I talked about it all year. The expectations were so out of whack, so high that they would win these games and they wouldn't get style points and they wouldn't celebrate like a normal win. Like a normal NFL win, it's like a party in the locker room afterwards. They're like, we didn't play that well, but that's what I meant. I think that's what Jeff meant. I think that's what Ed meant. Not that they hated each other. It was just this extraordinary strain of the expectations coming off the year prior.
Right. So now I got a question for both of you again. And Damo, you first this time. Is that Sirianni's fault? Did he allow that to happen? He's the coach of the football team. He's the culture setter. And yet, at 10-1, they're winning games, but they're not doing it with style points, not doing it enough. Does Sirianni have to correct that? Does he have to step in and go, hey, come on, let's go. We're 10-1. He allowed this to permeate throughout his locker room. Is that the coach's fault that they were the most miserable 10-1 team ever because of high expectations that John just stated?
I mean, I've said before, I think maybe even last week, that there was an arrogance with Nick coming off last season where I thought he was going to be able to snap his fingers and everything was going to go like it did the year before, and that didn't happen. And I don't think he adjusted well, both schematically or in the locker room as far as how he dealt with these guys. I mean, there's some crazy stuff coming up now with explanations for this season. I mean, I thought I had seen it all until I saw where now it's apparently because
Dom's fault.
Suspension to Dom was what caused this whole downfall.
Yeah.
That he was the guy that kept Nick in check. I mean, come on.
That's what I said. I mean, and by the way, Dom was back for the Tampa game. What? It didn't look like it got much better without AJ Brown, by the way.
Yeah.
But
I mean, they were unhappy early on because they weren't. I mean, nobody made a big deal of it then. They weren't killing. They weren't blowing anybody out. Their offense was kind of playing as at least point wise on a level with the year before, but their defense from the start struggled. Their third down defense all year was the worst in the league. It wasn't something that just happened in week 12 or 13. I mean. And when you have a defense as bad as that one was last year, right there, you're generally going to have friction between offense and defense. I mean, you saw that going back to the '80s with with when Reggie and those guys were so good defensively, and they I mean, Seth Joyner would call out Randall Cunningham for being, for being not studying hard enough and stuff like that. I mean, that's just a part of the game.
Well, winning, losing creates issues, obviously, and then winning kind of smooths them all over. But typically over the course of the year, you might see some stuff, and I always see, like CJ. I'm honest. CJ Gardner-Johnson, he would walk in the locker room, guys would roll their eyes. Big weird personality. I mean, not that it was bad. He was a great player. He made plays. They made the Super Bowl. Wasn't that big of an issue. But you could sense there's a bunch of guys who are like, just tone it down. I got none of that this year. I got none of it. Nowhere. Nelson tried to take a swing at me once. Aguilar. John Gannode had to save me. You see all this kind of stuff. I didn't see any of it. So, hey, maybe I'm getting old. Maybe I didn't see any of it. Now, I saw Fletcher get mad at us when we figured out where the special teams depth chart was. He ripped that down in front of us. But that was, reporters, players. I didn't see any of it, Damo. Any of it. There's a bunch of good guys. Mailata's phenomenal. Kelsey. Lane didn't talk this year because he was pissed off about there was an anonymous GM that said he talks a lot and that's why he gets all the accolades. So he decided to prove to that anonymous GM somewhere. Jeremy Fowler reported it, that he could be an all-pro and not talk. So that was his deal. Hassan, I think, was dealing with contract issues. So that's always kind of an issue. He didn't want to talk about that. But this clash between people, I just didn't see. And AJ Brown is one of the best guys in that locker room. I mean, he gets along with everybody, but he's got some issues with social media. Slay, I think people don't realize Slay gets along with everybody because he's got the big personality. BG. I mean, he's phenomenal. I just didn't see it. I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, the end of the year, the way they played, I mean, there's no doubt they were all miserable at that point.
Oh, yeah. They're miserable
over
losing.
Finger pointing, I'm sure, was if it wasn't visible, they were under their breath were blaming each other because, I mean, that was just some ugly play those last 6-7 weeks.
Yeah, they didn't play well. Yeah. The play was atrocious.
Damo, prior to his MVP level season, Jalen Hurts had gone out to California to work with House and Dado, two quarterback gurus, mentors, and the like. I don't believe he went out there again this year, and it was in part because the Eagles and the NFL kind of needed Jalen to be not a face of the franchise in Philadelphia, one of the faces of the NFL. Have you heard anything, read anything? Would you make that amend? If you're Kellen Moore, you now got the job as offensive coordinator. Are you calling to ask Jalen, can I see your itinerary to get back out to California to work with your quarterback gurus? How aggressive will Kellen Moore be the day he shows up for the Eagles and starts running this offense?
Well, I mean, I read he's already talked to Jalen. In fact, he mentioned that he talked football, which is probably going to get him a fine, or the organization a fine.
Oh, shoot, I didn't even think about that. Good point. Yeah, get the checkbook out, Kellen.
Here's the deal. Here's the deal. Most NFL coaches do not want their quarterbacks going out and working with these independent guys because they don't know what they're teaching them. They don't know what kind of mechanics they're teaching them. A lot of times they get these guys back and they got to retrain them. So that's why the league is so screwed up with this. I mean, the union feels, we don't want to, these guys deserve time off, blah, blah, blah. But particularly for quarterbacks, it hurts these guys. I mean, Jalen is not able to, he's not getting a head start on this new offense. He's not able to talk to Kellen Moore, presumably about it. They're not going to, I mean, it not allowing these guys to have access to the coaches and to playbooks and getting some snaps before April is just stupid. But it's what this league's become because of the owners want money. The players said, okay, well, in exchange for giving you 17 games, you got to, we're going to go light in the off season.
Quality of life. Yeah, that's the only thing they win. Quality of life. They never win money.
It's made the game worse, and it's made preparation worse. And
I remember, Tombo, you asked. You and I were talking to Jeff Stoutland the one year, and it was when the USFL was still going. The AAF with Charlie Ebersol, that gripped.
Yeah, I'm the only guy that's old enough to remember the original USFL.
Yeah,
me too. I got a Birmingham Stallions hat somewhere at my house.
I meant the reboot, but it was actually the AAF. Charlie Ebersol was gripping everybody, but he at the time he was talking about trying to make it a developmental league for the NFL. The NFL had no interest, but he was trying to grip people. And Jordan Mailata was at that time still the raw developmental. And I think you asked Stoutland basically, would you want to give him over, get some reps in the AAF or something like that? And Stoutland's like, I don't want anybody touching this guy. I don't want somebody screwing him up. Yeah, it's tough, but you almost have to be great. You almost have to go out and work on your own.
Yeah.
So you got to find the best available. I think Tom House and Adam Daydew are the best available. Jalen did go out there last year, but he didn't spend as much time out there. So that was the difference. I don't know if that's the difference to why, but he didn't spend as much time. He did go though, Jody.
Yeah.
But he didn't spend as much time.
You have a meal?
I don't know how much time, but he did go. He did go.
Yeah, you also got $250 million. So picking up the plane ticket, not a problem when you're a quarter billionaire. If he went to just shake hands and say hi, I'm not going to give him a lot.
I think he did more than that, is what I'm saying. He was working out there, but for a short period at least.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was extensive. That was one of the things he did. And Carson Wentz did the same thing, by the way, before 2017, his MVP almost season, MVP-like season. He went out there to work with those guys, and then he stopped and kind of lost the mechanics a little bit. Well, I think losing John DiFilippo had a big part of that as well. But, yeah, it's tough. These guys don't get to work. So they have to go out on their own. You have to find the best coaches available. And, yeah, if you're an NFL coach, you don't want those guys screwing you up. But they could, in theory.
I think a lot of for a while there, I don't know right now, but a lot of teams, they knew these guys were going to work with somebody, and they would steer them to guys they trusted. I mean, Gruden would be one.
Yeah.
House you mentioned. I mean, guys that they knew when they got the quarterback back, he wouldn't be like throwing passes, in midair. So
Tim Tebow passes.
Yikes.
To this day, by the way, Tim Tebow is the only person I've ever seen throw a pass over the shrubs at the NovaCare complex and outside the facility. So congratulations.
Why am I not surprised? All right, Don, the last one for me, because John and I earlier in this week when the Eagles signed a couple of guys to futures contracts, reserve futures contracts, said this is Howie Roseman improving the team, or at least taking a shot to improve the team outside the margins, which is a good thing. And John and I both agree it's one of his strengths. Andy Reid up to that same business by signing the punt god. We've been waiting for 2 years for Matt Araiza to get a shot, and apparently the Kansas City Chiefs are the team that are going to give him that. Buffalo brought him into camp. Then the whole thing hit the fan, and he was out of football this entire year. I'm on CBS Sports Radio Saturday night till the wee hours of the morning. So I watched him play football on the collegiate level out there on the West Coast. I got nothing else to do. Got the TV on while I'm on the air. And I watched some of his punts. I said, oh, my God, this is the greatest collegiate punter I've ever seen. So I started talking up Matt Ariza 2 Octobers ago. Andy Reid, once again, ahead of the curve. We try and give the Eagles what we think they're ahead of the curve credit. We got to do the same for Andy Reid.
Hey, when you're two back-to-back Super Bowls, you can do anything and nobody's going to question you.
You got that right.
You can be a little braver. You know, and Andy's a guy that gives people chances because of his own, because of what's happened with his own family, that, he's not reluctant to do that.
And by the way, Kansas City has one of the best punters in football, Tommy Townsend. It was phenomenal in the Super Bowl. But he's a free agent, and he's going to get paid, at least paid for a punter in the NFL. Because if he's not the best, he's the second best. Ironically, probably Wisnowski with San Francisco. They were the 2 best players in the game for a long period.
Yeah. And did you see that? Sorry to interrupt. Like Peter King had the numbers in his column last week. They had the same exact number of punts for the same exact. It was like outrageous. Exactly the same in the Super Bowl. 49ers punter and the Kansas City punters were exact same numbers. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and they were great. Both of them were great, and Townsend is phenomenal. But nobody wants to pay a punter more than they have to, and you can bring in this kid for the league minimum.
Oh yeah,
and make a few bucks. That's why Kansas City's smart. Although I find it very hard to believe he might punt it farther, but NFL's punting. There's a lot more than just punting it far. You got to kick directionally. You got to kick away from returners. You got to do some things. He's not going to be as good as Tommy Townsend. Tommy's good, but nobody wants to pay punters.
Yeah, but we used to say that about kickers too, and now all the kickers just kick it off the back of the end zone, and nobody ever tries to positional kick and force the other team.
Well, punter though, you still have to.
It's different than kickers, but the whole special teams things have changed. All right, Damo, you got a doctor appointment, maybe dance instruction? You got anything for next Friday that we got to work with you on schedule? Because we need you here every single week with shirts like that. I'm just trying to get 7 days in advance. You got anything coming up next week?
I think I'm clear. I think I can fit you in.
You are the man, Damo. Always a pleasure, buddy. Thanks for jumping in today.
Thanks, Damo. At Damo on X, by the way. Make sure you follow Paul on X.
And he will be here with us next week after watching the Combine all week, like McMullen and McDonald. We'll be watching all week long. Leading into next Friday when Damo's back. We'll be back. We got to put a bow on the show here on Birds 365. But before we do, let me help you Birds fans out. Here's your chance to save up to 40% on your car insurance. You can do that right now from one of JAKIB Sports' great partners. Here's what you need to do. Call one of the 2 managing general partners. That would be either Jim or Fran, and tell them you're a friend of JAKIB Sports and Birds 365.
My name is Fran Salerno, and I'm a managing director here at Del Valle Insurance Group. Been in the business for over 36 years, saving people money on their insurance needs. Give us a call. Let us help you custom design an insurance plan that meets both your needs and budget.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up, and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer three major services, the first one being basement waterproofing, the second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs, and then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Mac guys, back to put a bow on the show here on Birds 365. Tomorrow, next week, Combine Week. From the time we get on, I believe they don't have anything official on the books till Monday. But I know a lot of guys. I know a couple guys, I should say, at least, if not a lot. We're flying out on Sunday. They like to get there ahead of time, lay of the land, maybe sneak in an interview or two. So we may have something actually as far as newsworthy goes by the time we get on here Monday. We will definitely on Tuesday. And yeah, I was right. I remembered correctly. It was Peter King's article because I had not seen this. The two punters in the Super Bowl, exactly the same stat line, 5 punts each for 254 yards. That's like unheard of. You can't go into a game and say the punters are going to have, number one, the exact same number of punts, and then number two, punt for the same exact number of yards, 254 apiece. Townsend gets the win because he kind of banked one off a 49ers leg that led to a turnover, which was as big a play as almost any in the Super Bowl. But he may or may not be back with the Chiefs next year. That's you have the kind of game that
expensive, man. Yeah, they both were tremendous. They really, and I only somewhat facetiously early in the game they were the best players. I know Wisnowski. They were not only, his net. You mentioned the same. I'm looking it up. I know we got to go. His net was 48.4 net. So 50.8, 48.4. So they're getting nothing. 3 inside the 20. Townsend's was 50.8 gross, 50.8 nets. So they didn't get 1 yard when he punted, and he had 2 inside the 20. They were phenomenal. Yep. Phenomenal.
They were star to show in the first half, basically. Yeah. The punters. Yeah, that's what you want out of your Super Bowl. Who are the best players? The two punters.
Yeah. But nobody cares until it happens and Aaron Cepas kicks the ball the wrong way and boom, then you got
kind
issues.
Of picked up in the second half when Kyle Shanahan kind of felt that little sweat on the back of his neck and didn't lend itself to good decisions.
Best play caller in the business, though.
He may well be. And that is one very defined role that he has. But when you're the head coach of a football team, you're asked to do a little bit.
By the way, I looked at Derek Klassen's list after we went. It's all at the top. Look at the top 10. It's all the Shanahan, Kubiak guys. It's all the McVays, the LaFleurs, O'Connell was in the top 10. All those guys. Stefanski, all those guys. But poor Clint Kubiak, he had down to 31. Clint should be right up in the top 5.
Clint hasn't called plays yet. That is
he did before, though. He did before. He did in Minnesota. He did for one season. He should already be up at the top of the list because he's a Kubiak.
Well,
if you're a Shanahan or a Kubiak,
good on
be up there.
Klassen for not just putting him up there because of his name. And yeah, I don't have a problem with him at number 32. But I'll predict at the end of the year when Kellen Moore, cross your fingers that he's not hired by somebody else to be a head coach, when he's back as the Eagle play caller for 2025, he will be higher than 19th. I'm going to go out on a limb and project
taking the over.
That's the case. Yes. Johnny Mac, you and I on Monday morning. I'm in. You in?
Let's do it.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Be back here on Monday. That would be 2 and 2 days from now on Birds 365.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate, inside the locker room, and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.